So welcome back to another episode of Investor One-on-One. Today we're sitting down with Brad Martin. He's the founder of Reve Estates, one of the fastest rising real estate investment companies that specialize in short-term rentals and luxury destinations. We'll dive into his whole story, how he got into real estate, how he built Reve Estates, and a system and mindset that helped him scale. If you're an investor looking to level up in 2025, especially in the short-term rental space, you do not want to miss this.
If you're investing,
The podcast for all things real estate investing.
Hi, Brad. It's amazing having you on, man. So yeah, let's just talk a little bit more about your background and how you got into real estate.
Yeah, like a lot of people, my journey started buying, a single family home that I rented out to a friend of mine that we lived in. So it was house hacking before a lot of people, or at least before I knew what house hacking was. So I found a house that I wanted to live in. I bought it, had a roommate. He paid almost all of the mortgage, all the utilities. I chipped in a little bit. And he helped build equity from day one that allowed me to really see, man, this real estate game is pretty fun, pretty easy. And so that was my forte into the real estate investing side of things, get someone else to help pay my mortgage and get to live almost for free.
That's awesome, man. And how did you get into Rev's Estate? And can you tell us more about what you guys do today?
Yeah, I started Reve Estates. My background is from that very first house that we had all the way through doing multifamily, light industrial, office, a lot of different things in the real estate spectrum. That I started to buy short-term rental properties that my wife and my family could utilize. And it was one of those things that over time, people kept coming to me and wanted me to mentor them, wanted me to help them identify great markets, wanted me to help them underwrite the deals. And I would do that. And sometimes when I would buy short-term rentals, I would actually bring investors along. I'd do small syndicated deals where just a couple of partners would take some of these properties full cycle. But what I found was there's a lot of people that want to be in this space. They just don't know how. And my time kind of got a little limited. So instead of guiding and mentoring and just kind of showing people on a one-off basis how to make it work, utilizing my background in the syndicated world, I decided to put a fund together that we go buy high-end luxury short-term rental properties all around the globe that our investors get to use, but when we're not using them, we rent them out, and then we get to pay a dividend back to the investors. Plus, the investors get the enjoyment of using, plus they get the tax benefits, plus they get the appreciation value. So it was kind of a four-pronged approach that we really wanted to show that not only could you make money, but you could also have this great lifestyle component that was really fun and memorable.
That's awesome, man. And following up on that, we have a bunch of investors have different strategies, but if you had to recommend an investor to go into, short-term rentals, why would they? And do you have a case study that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, short-term rentals, why I would tell people to do that, honestly, is because a lot of people aren't doing it. So that's one of the reasons is everybody is doing multifamily. So you're competing against a lot of well-known people and a lot of smaller people as well. So the cap rates are compressed. Also, with short-term rentals, you get this lifestyle thing. So we work really hard for our money. We do all these various things, but at the end of the day, not all real estate is equal. So if I own a property that is on the beach or a ski in, ski out house or somewhere in the mountains, that typically is going to have a higher appreciation rate than a standard 3-bed, 2-bath house in any town USA. So from a thesis standpoint, we feel the homes that we're going to buy are going to appreciate at a quicker pace than most other homes. And it's going to be a situation in which we're going to be able to pass that savings and that appreciation back to our investors.
And you guys focus on high-end luxury markets for your short-term rentals. How do you guys find your markets? How do you guys find your deals?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of research is a very short answer. We spend a lot of time looking at places that we know people are going to want to continue to go to, and it might not be a very seasonal situation. You see a lot of short-term rental markets that kind of come on the scene, they blow up. Broken Bow, Oklahoma was one of those about 3 years ago, where it was the number one rated place on Airbnb. Globally, more people rented in Broken Bow, Oklahoma, but that's kind of a flash in the pan. So what we look at is sustainability. We look at drivers that continue to put people in those places. That can be things like mountains, beachfront. That can also be amusement parks, as you see in Disney in California, Disneyland and Disney World in Florida, California. And there's also, hot tourist areas, things that just continue to go. And then we work with realtors, we would work with local people and investors in those markets to really identify key houses that we know we want to be a part of. And then we do our due diligence process and go from there.
And for anyone watching this, how do you have a very specific clientele. Besides Airbnb, how do you find your clientele and how important is branding for a company like yours?
Yeah, branding is very important. We spend a lot of time and effort on branding. A lot of our clientele are high net worth individuals that want to have a diversified portfolio. They probably have already done syndicated investments or real estate investments, and now they're looking kind of for that next chapter. And typically, that chapter involves this lifestyle play. So, most of our clients, most of our investors are people that want great luxury homes in great markets, and then we spend a lot of time marketing to them, A, as an investor, and or B, just as an end user. So if someone that's typically going to go stay at a Ritz-Carlton or Four Seasons, they're going to be a prime candidate to come stay at one of our properties. These are luxurious properties in great locations. And so instead of staying at a Four Seasons, you might be taking a family of 4 or 5 or a couple friends, and you want a house to rent. We want to have that house that these high net worth individuals are going to rent from.
Can you tell us some of the places or cities or countries that you're in and where you guys are looking to expand? And if you have any ideas of where the next hotspots for investors could be, that'd be awesome too.
Yeah, right now we're in Arizona, we're in Costa Rica, we're in Utah, we're looking at Turks and Caicos is a prime spot, Bahamas is a prime spot, Hawaii is a prime spot that we're looking at as well as Colorado and Florida. And again, it kind of goes back to where do people want to travel and how often do we see them traveling there? And does that market continue to grow? And is there a buying opportunity there? And so every one of these markets we study very specifically to see where the deals are. And then we go and find those deals and then take them down. And so it's always something that we're trying to grow. We're trying to get global. We're looking at some places, even in Europe, Tuscany being one, London and Paris being a couple of others, because we know those markets always are hot. There's a lot of demand that comes to that. And so it's things that just makes it fun, honestly, because we get to go on a lot of great trips to do some scouting. And so it's a fun process that we bring our investors along for the ride.
Awesome, man. And let's talk a little bit more about, operations for anyone that is looking to scale and seeing the way you guys operate and want to learn from that. What were the first systems or hires that made your life easier? And can you tell us a little bit more about your team today?
Yeah, I mean, we're very big on systems, right? And so we spend a lot of time before we ever started putting our systems in place. We're always trying to tweak it and grow it, but we want to make sure we had the right systems, not only for identifying properties, but then onboarding those properties, making sure that they get utilized as quickly as possible, because these are properties that only make sense when they're actually online and someone can rent them out and start paying us money. So there's a lot of systems that go into, just the buy side. Then there's a lot of systems that we put in place when it looks at just the management side. So everything from the guest experience, how quickly do we respond to a guest if they talk to us? We do concierge service. So we actually have someone at these homes to help check the guest in. So we have to have systems in place for that. We have to have constant communication, not only with the guests, but with our teams. And so we're always monitoring those. And then it's also the system just internally talking to investors. How do we talk to investors? What data are we showing them? What cadence does that data come from and in what manner? And so it's always something that we are very key on. And I would tell any investor, anybody that's coming out there that's trying to do real estate deals, is get your systems dialed in. It makes your life easier. One of the things that I did is I hired a great virtual assistant that kind of runs everything in my world, that I can rely on them to help make sure all these systems are in place. They can provide, a KPI dashboard tracker to me that shows each house what we're doing on an ADR, average daily rate, what our occupancy looks like, but then also what our guest experience looks like and our maintenance and everything else.
That's awesome, man. And yeah, every time I travel, I always ask people what's their first hire, and they're always like, get a VA, get a VA. It takes everything off my head. That can take you to the next step. So yeah, I agree with that. And following up on that, your experience in the short-term rental, and you've seen it all. What's one mistake you're seeing new investors that are entering the space make?
Yeah, you not identifying the right market. A lot of investors buy in places that they want to travel to, and that's okay. But if you're really trying to maximize returns and appreciation value, buy in places that people want to go to. So always make sure that there's a high demand and that demand continues to grow. And then also, what are some of the things that you're adding right now that's going to make your house stand out? As the short term rental market continues to grow, there's a lot of homes out there that are the same. So, what are some of the amenities that you're offering? What are some of the services? What's the size of the house, the location of the house that's really going to make it stand out? And it's little things like that that are paramount that you really want to make sure that you know that when you go approach a realtor, when you're looking, you have what we call our buy box. We have that identified. So we're not just looking at any house, we're looking at specific houses with specific amenities.
You spoke a little bit about sustainability before. Are there any trends you're seeing in this industry that are in the next few years?
Yeah, you're seeing luxury travel really become more and more prevalent across a multitude of facets. You're also seeing AI start to play a role. I actually wrote an article on this where we talked about how AI is going to play a role in the short-term rental space, and our thesis is that AI is going to really be able to dial in what a consumer or someone that's coming to stay at the house is looking for, and in what specific area. So if I'm someone that wants to go stay at a house that is close to a lot of other people, but I'm looking for a romantic getaway, AI can help kind of narrow that down. It can also help drive in. So when I come to the house, it knows my specific temperature that I like to sleep. It knows where I want to eat, and it has everything there. Where we now, as owners of these properties, we have to take a lot of guessing into account and a lot of legwork. Where by utilizing AI, I can know this particular guest is a vegan, and so let me identify 4 restaurants that might make their experience a little bit better than another 4 that might not. And so by utilizing AI and some of the technology out there, it'll help streamline that process, but it'll also help provide higher guest satisfaction because it's catered directly to them.
That's awesome. And can you share with us, an example of a project that you guys are working on right now, some numbers so our investors can be familiar?
Yeah, we just closed on a property in Scottsdale, Arizona. This was a 5 bed, 5 bath house that the previous owner bought it for $3.6 million. We ended up closing because they were a distressed seller for 2.8 million. We then put about $100,000 into it by adding 2 ensuite bedrooms and bathrooms, making a 7 bed, 7.5 bath house. So we're all in it for about $2.93 million on a 3.6 million appraised value. So that's now 600,000 equity. That house alone, once we got it up and running, it took us roughly 30 days to get it up and running, generated over $95,000 in the first 60 days. And so it's those type of things that we look for. Where some places that we can buy that we know is going to continue to have value, but also what are some small things that we could do to increase the equity of that house and also the rentability of that house. Because now in Scottsdale, Arizona, this particular house being 7 bed, 7.5 bath with all en suites means you could have multiple families there, sleep up to 20 people. You can have multiple families there without sharing a bathroom. And that in the short-term rental world is key. And that's one of the things going back, what are common mistakes people make? They buy these houses where 2 couples that might be friends but not related to each other have to share a bathroom. And it's little things like that that just don't get you the 5-star reviews, or it might not even get the house booked because people fundamentally just do not want to share a bathroom with their friends. It's things like that that people just do not think about.
I agree. And, you spoke about common mistakes. Brad, you've had a very successful real estate journey. In your career, what was the hardest failure you had to go through?
Ooh, that's a good one. When it comes to the real estate world, like a lot of people, man, you get the wrong tenants in the wrong house or the wrong asset, and it's just very hard. One story that always comes to mind is I had a single family home. I wasn't getting rent paid, and after a couple months of knocking on the doors, I finally had to start the eviction process. And
Hmm.
this guy was in there, and the way he was trying to pay rent was by changing the oil of his buddy's motorcycles, but he was doing it inside the living room. So you could only imagine the mess that was making. And it was just such a terrible experience, to have to not only get him out of the house, but then also now have to rip up the carpet, clean the floors, all that kind of stuff. But that is the joy of being an entrepreneur. That's the joy of owning assets like real estate, is you're going to have those things. The biggest thing is just to know they're going to come, be prepared for them. There's always worse for stories, and just plan accordingly.
I was gonna say, what's one mindset that, keeps you strong during these hard times, or something that you can share with our investors that are going through hard times?
Yeah, I mean, I think our mindset is always one of, this too shall pass. And we try to prepare for the rain. So we always are trying to think, whatever stage of life that we're going through right now, whether it's the highs of having really good success, or there might be some downtimes, we're struggling for all the various reasons, that this too shall pass, and that we just need to stay the course. If we feel that we are on the right path, if we put a great plan together, if we're methodical in it, and we trust the process, then we know eventually the results will come. And so it's no different than going to a gym and trying to work out and get bigger. Repetition and just consistency pay dividends over time. And so this is not about how quickly you win. It's about how long you last, and just staying really involved in the process, and just trusting what you put together. And that's hard to do. It's hard to do in the moment because you think everything's failing. But the more you can just say, I've got this, I trust the process, it will eventually work out.
I couldn't agree more, man. Great advice. And if there was any book, mentor, or resources that have influenced your mindset, what would that be?
Traction right now is one that I've been reading. Talk about processes and all that. It's a really good book. That really helps you dive in. Obviously, I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, everybody's read, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Another great one, another great business book as it looks at scaling teams, is a book by Jim Collins called Good to Great. And it's making sure you have the right people in the right seats in your organization. And that's a book, especially as you start to grow and you start to identify key players. Are they the right players at the right time for your organization? And as a leader, as the tip of the spear, you need to always be thinking, ahead. And do I have the right team in place to take this to where it needs to be? And if not, let me start that process, because you're only as good as your team. You're only as good as those around you. And so you want to make sure you have the right people in place.
And for an investor that's watching this right now and they're like, wow, Brad really, is hyping me up about going into the short-term rental space, what's the best way to get started?
Yeah, the best way to get started is through research. Start identifying markets that people continue to want to go to. You might be able to see a little bit, buying opportunity because of the economics right now. And so I'd start with sites like AirDNA. I'd start looking at places that people routinely want to go to, or places that people are starting to put on their radar. Costa Rica was a prime example for us, where we knew Costa Rica was an area that was up and coming, and we saw buying opportunity there. It's a little bit of a long play for us, but we know there's going to be great success. Hawaii, for example, is a place everybody has known about, but everybody continues to go. So that's a little bit more stabilized deal. It's going to cost us more money to enter that market, but we know over time the appreciation rates in Hawaii will continue to grow. So the biggest thing to do if you're starting in this space is to really identify the markets, identify what is working well, and maybe what's missing. There's a lot of things out there right now, that you can add from an amenity standpoint that a lot of homes might not have, that will set your home apart. And it could be a cheap, easy win to set yourself up for success.
And where do you see Reve Estates in the next few years? What's next for you guys?
Yeah, we continue to grow. So our overarching goal is we want to have about 70 homes under management that we're operating and utilizing globally. So we're continuing to grow. We're continuing to raise capital. And so over the next 3 to 5 years, we're in this growth phase where we're acquiring homes, we're acquiring new investors. And it's a fun experience, man, because we get to travel all over the world. We get to have some really cool stories. And then from there, we're just going to grow the brand in a lot of different ways. Our lifestyle aspect, we're looking for a lot of different things to try to really grow and develop this brand. And so there's some cool things on the horizon that we feel will really set us apart from anybody else.
That's awesome. I'm excited to see, the future of Reve Estates. And you personally, what do you hope Rev will be known in the long term besides, the real estate aspect?
Yeah, at this stage, I get asked to do a lot of things. We've acquired a golf course, and I spent some time getting not only to play golf, but also get to be a part of a great growing organization that we've had some really good success there. And there's a couple other, revenue aspects that we're looking at, and it's really about doing things that check a couple boxes. Number one, making money. Number two, you have fun doing. And so I'm really trying to be selective and then spend a lot of time giving back. We do a lot of mentorship, a lot of leadership stuff. I love, having conversations with someone that is ahead of me and also someone that's trying to get into this space or get into the real estate world and just really learning how do you underwrite deals, having done multitudes, over $100 million worth of acquisitions across a multitude of things from, like I said earlier, oil and gas, multifamily, warehouse, office, etc. I've been able to see a lot of different deals. I can tell very quickly how to underwrite a deal, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. So I always love sharing that knowledge to people.
Awesome, Brad. And to conclude this interview, what's next for you on a personal level, and what's your favorite place in the world to travel to? Because I know you've been everywhere, man.
Yeah, what's next for me is just continuing to enjoy life. I've got a 17-year-old daughter that's about to go to college, so I'm in that phase of life now where I'm getting to see life through her eyes as she's going into college, and so that's really fun. My wife and I love to travel. We've been to some beautiful places. I don't know if I could pick a great one. As of this recording, I literally just got back from London and Paris, and every time I go, there's something new and fun that I see. At the end of the day, I do love a good beach, and so there's some great beaches out there. Antigua is one that we just went to recently. That the water is as clear as I've ever seen, and so we're excited about that. We're looking at going to Maldives as well. So there's some places that they're on the bucket list. But if I had to pick one that I would say a lot of people need to go to, probably be Santorini, because you get to go to Greece, and Athens is beautiful. You get to see a lot of great history there. Santorini is unbelievable as well. So that needs to be on a lot of people's bucket list.
Awesome, man. Brad, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today and all the wisdom that you shared. If anyone wants to connect with you or learn more about Rev's Estate, how can they do that?
Yeah, the best way is just shoot me an email. Happy to connect. Brad at Reve Estates.com, or I'm on all the social media channels at Reve Estates. Just feel free to drop me a line there, and happy to connect.
Awesome, Brad. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Great talking.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe so you can meet more top investors across the US. Plus, plenty more inspiring stories and strategies coming your way.